talks about going to Japan or going to China and using Panda and stuff, but what about if you want to get a prototype done? Do any of you people work with anybody in the United States to do printing and development of maybe small quantities to get prototyping set up? And who is it? Only I ever hear people say, oh yeah, everything's done in China, go work with Panda, and that's all I ever hear.
If you want just a prototype, I think there's a couple that I could highly recommend. I know if you don't have Richard Launius' skill, who can do it all himself, I think the ones that most, testing, 1, 2, 3. All right. The couple that are the most popular, you can find their information right here at PrototypeCon where all the components are. One is the Game Crafter. So you can do a whole prototype on there, including a box, boards, cards, chits, anything that you would need. You can do a prototype on the Game Crafter. And also Print and Play Productions does excellent prototypes as well. So if you just want a limited amount of copies to send out for play testing, to do your prototypes with, those are the two that I could definitely recommend right off the top of my head.
You also print in small quantities, right? If you wanted like a
Yeah,
limited-
if you want to print a game in small quantities too, the Game Crafter is a good option as well. And they will actually fulfill games to your, if you're like using Kickstarter, to your backers, or do your sales for you on their website. If you're printing maybe under 1,000, say, that would make sense. You could use a Game Crafter. Now, the thing is, the quality isn't going to be as good, and you're going to have to sell it for a lot more money, and you're not going to make as much profit. So all negatives in that regard, but you can do smaller print runs using them.
Do you use them for your fulfillment for your band name generator?
Yes.
There's also other companies. I can't remember. There's also other small companies that do, print on demand. So you can do small print runs. I can't remember off the top of my head the names of them though. Anybody chime in here? Don't remember any names?
There's does Ad Magic?
Yeah, Ad Magic.
Ad Magic, I think, does a certain quantity. I know there's at least one more, but honestly, you can easily search for them.
I was just wondering if somebody had some experience would say, we'd like working with them versus definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think Game Crafter, you'd see a lot of people do prototypes, get that. There you go, there's someone right there. So Print and Play is another that you can use.
Chicago Game and Cards.
Chicago Game and Cards, somebody mentioned.
Good looking game.
Awesome. Oh, I didn't realize I had the mic. I just sound like a jerk. My question for you guys, since you've all designed games, I'm sure for every game that you've published, you probably had like 3 or 4 that were like garbage. Or not. Maybe you guys, everything you touch is gold. But I'm curious at what, some stories that we could maybe hear of like some games that you guys had that you're like, oh man, this is not working at all. I'd like to
Steve?
hear what kind of apprehension. I don't know. Just like to hear some stories.
Who wants to take that one? Who wants to admit to having a bad game?
Yeah.
Look, I have, anybody that's been to my house can tell you, I have shelves of what I call unfit games, okay? Unfit games. They're good ideas. They didn't work out. The mechanics didn't work out. I'll usually work a game through 2 or 3 different mechanics if it's not working to see if I can save it, because I design thematic games, so I find a theme, I try to do the mechanics around the theme, I try to make sure the game has the fun factor and all the things I'm looking for in it. And if it doesn't, it goes on my shelf of unfit games. Now, sooner or later, it usually comes back off that shelf because I get an idea to fix it. But you're going to have failures. You're going to have lots of failures, okay? And that's the thing you just have to be ready for. Sometimes when you put the game on the table, no matter how hard you've worked on it, no matter how good you think the idea is, it just doesn't work. And you got to be willing to say it just doesn't work. Now, you might be able to save it right then if you're willing to just revamp mechanics on the fly. But too often people get locked into those mechanics. I mean, I've heard game designers tell me, well, I can't change that. That's a core mechanic. Well, not if it's not working. If it's not working, it's not a core mechanic, okay? So you got to be willing to change it, or you're not going to have something you do something with. But I imagine everybody up here that's designing games have failures. So. They're happy with me just answering that one.
Yeah.
There's plenty at my house. So.
I don't know what he's talking about.
What advice would you give to a new designer? Those of us that are just really starting, no, honestly, really, when you're at square one and you come up with what you think is the bee's knees, hey, I got the next best, blah, blah. I know better than to say that. But you think you got something really good. What advice can you give us to take it to that next door?
I'll lead off. I think you should keep it simple, first of all. Everybody, I mean, a lot of times people try to throw in every good idea they have. And you got to identify, well, actually, we're talking about this on the drive down, the fun factor in the game. What's the most fun part? Right. And concentrate on just that and make sure that that's what shines in the game. And then after that, you can start maybe adding more stuff to it. But more often, everybody's like, I'm just going to make this really great, really complex game. And there might be some cool things going on with it, but there's so many things that are not working right that you can't even see that. So, I mean, I think keep it simple. And then he already said, don't be afraid to abandon preconceptions about what should work or what doesn't work.
Everyone's always going to tell you to play test, which you should, obviously, but you need to play test with people who don't know you and especially don't love you. You need to listen to everyone, but not listen to anyone. Which I mean by that is you get the feedback, listen to it, and you'll get a game that's pretty good, you'll give it to somebody, and that one person will hate it. And they'll tell you 16 ways to fix it, and you gotta be careful. If you keep changing it from what the last person said, eventually you'll have nothing. At the same time, if everyone tells you they hate something, it's bad. One of the biggest problems I run into with designers is they just simply won't accept the fact that no one likes their game, and they're looking for that person who says they do like it, which you will find. It's either, could be mom, could be the other designers here who want you then to say that you like their game. But you need to find honest people, and it's brutal. They could be your game group, and you might think they hate you when it's done, but oh my, I wish more designers would have people play test their game and give them negative feedback so that later on I don't have to. But I will.
Well, see, that's the thing I appreciate, more negative feedback than positive, because I learn a heck of a lot more from that negative than I do from positive. I really do. I gain more from it. I know most of the time when I'm done what's good and what's bad, but I don't have it all. So like you say, I want other people. That's why I brought mine here today, because I can get all fresh people. So thank you. That was
cool. Yeah, I don't have any problem getting negative feedback. I like positive when I can get it. The thing I would like to say to you is if you're designing a game, make sure you really, really love and research what you're designing and what you're trying to bring to life, okay? Not that you're using some just interesting mechanics, but that the whole game is built around, I'm always going to talk that theme and that experience that you're trying to create, okay? So that everything works together. And, you can tell when people are playing it if it's achieving some of those things, even before you get the feedback. You can watch people and see whether it's doing the kind of things that when you play it that you feel that, are they feeling similar things? Everybody doesn't like the same kind of game. That's fine. So you play with a broad range of people, I think. But in the end, I think you've got to really, before you even start that design, you got to really want to play that game you're starting to design. And that has to be part of everything you start with. Because if it doesn't start there, at least for me, if it doesn't start there, it's never going to end well, okay? If you're just trying to make a game because you saw an interesting mechanic or because of this, that, the other, it's got to be about the whole package.
What I said earlier, before all you folks got in here, I said, don't quit your day job. That's one of the most important things for a first time for designers. And then the other thing that is real important, and I think that as a game designer, you have to realize when your game is done. You have to end it sometime. You can always keep adding, you can always keep revising, but the game has to finish sometime, and you have to know when that is. So
Cool.
Board games are kind of coming back in vogue. I mean, there's a lot of like major news sources that are talking about the popularity of board games and how a lot of people that are used to playing video games are playing more and more board games, and the social element that they're not getting with online play, they're getting with physical play in front of each other. So I guess my question is twofold. One, where do you see this leading? Is that something that excites anyone? And two, what's the future of board game and sort of tabletop play? Is there anything that's going to integrate more interactive elements? Is there anything for those gateway gamers, people that are used to playing video games, that they're going to kind of get more in a board game environment? So I guess just the future of gaming and how this new audience is going to change or could possibly change the way board game culture is right now.
I don't know if I could predict that. I'd probably push my mind toward the next numbers in the Powerball and not worry about anything else. It's hard to say. I mean, I think board games will continue, first of all. I don't think they're going to go away. They've been around a long time. I don't see them going away anytime soon. I do think that there will be technical or technology elements added to board games. And you've seen that already. There are games that have apps included. Alchemist has an app where you use to see what and XCOM has apps. So I think you will probably see more of that. Beyond that, I mean, virtual board games that people have been working on. I remember there was that table. There used to be a table where you could play board games. So that might be developed. Yeah, I guess that's, which I guess is still all good for us, people who love board games, because it will be in our culture. So I don't see it going away.
Board games is exploding. I mean, there's no doubt about that. We're seeing more and more conventions start up. We're seeing them all grow. I mean, it's crazy cool, and I think it's a good thing. It's not a bubble. This isn't people speculating on anything. It's not suddenly, I mean, everyone's not going to wake up tomorrow and stop buying board games. If board games changes, it could go down. We could see fewer people being interested in it. But I think technology has only been good. You've mentioned a couple games that it's in, but that's still a minor, less than 1% of games it's in. There's very few games even being announced with this technology in them. It's coming. I mean, we'll see it more and more, but people have technology everywhere they go. Some of you are on your phones right now. Yeah, we see you. And, people get tired of that. They want something else, and board games is providing release for that. And we'll see technology in games, but I don't think we'll see, like, mind-blowing stuff. We're seeing iPads, for example. I played board game on the way up here in the car, but I didn't then not play a board game when I got here. I think it's helping. It's growth, and it's excellent for the industry. What's going to happen in the future? Well, I don't know. 17. I was going to make up something when I couldn't think of it. 52. Steve doesn't know. He's just glad to be here.
It's all going to be dark guns.
So, on that same line of technology, I've got the Tabletop Simulator. How do you guys feel about those as developing tools? I see a lot of new games that are being placed out there. People are play testing, putting their prototype items, all the things on there digitally.
I've seen some of those, and I think some of them are neat to look at personally, but they don't work for me. I mean, I design board games. People want to hold the cards. People want to roll the dice. I want that experience. So when I'm designing and testing, I have to have that. I tell people that, my design process is more of an art than a science. I can't really explain how I get to where I go sometimes. But I know part of that experience is when people sit down at the board and pick up the cards and roll the dice and all that type of stuff. I know I looked at a guy's design that he had on one of these, and he was somewhere else, and the dice icons weren't matching up, some tokens look different on mine. So I know these are minor things that technology will fix in time, but it really didn't make any difference because to roll the dice, I clicked the mouse. I didn't pick up the dice. It just is not the same experience for me. So when I'm designing, that doesn't really work for me in terms of how I interpret the design. And I've watched some games that come out that I could look at and tell they were really designed on computer, because they felt like they were designed on computer. They didn't feel like they were designed when you looked how the game was laid out and stuff. You could kind of see that it looked like it was designed on a computer screen versus on the tabletop.
I'll just say, I think it can help. I mean, we talked about play testing, and I guess if you don't have a group near you, or you want a blind play test, you can use that as a tool to have other people try out your game and give you feedback on that. Yes, it's a different kind of thing. You don't have the physical feel and obviously seeing people, but there's a lot of times you're not going to be able to see every group that tests it, and you may want to just get a different read on how a game plays. If the design is working. Actually, you will have to have obviously hard copies so people can manipulate them and see how that works out. But I see it as a useful tool
I can see the mechanic. You can evaluate the mechanic. I'm not sure you can evaluate the gameplay.
Yeah, or the funness,
right?
Kind of thing, because you're not there. But it's something. It's feedback. No.
I want to piggyback on the app question. I took a game, one that I'm playtesting here on Sunday morning. I took it to another design convention called Metatopia last November. And the people who played it told me that I should put it out as a board game, but I should also develop it as an app. What do you think of doing both? Is that a good idea or is that not a good idea?
Wouldn't it be game specific? Right, I mean, some games are going to work great as apps. So if your game falls in that wheelhouse where it's going to be really accessible as an app, then I think that maybe you should pursue that. But
Putting out both a board game and an app, is that,
are you talking like
my audience, or am I decreasing my audience?
as like a Kickstarter kind of thing where you're kind of providing both for the same fee or separate fees?
Cannibalize the board game market?
No. It does not cannibalize it, but I tell you what, I don't know of many games that are being designed, especially from first-time designers, where they're going app and board game at the same time, because that is an expensive proposition.
Yeah, I'm not a first time, but I know to develop an app is very expensive.
Okay.
It is very expensive.
It's very expensive, so, but I do not believe it cannibalizes it. I've got Elder Sign, and the app has not hurt the board game version at all.
Yeah, I think opposite. Just to talk about what Richard is saying, I think if it's a new design, right, I don't think you want to spend the money to create an app.
Right.
If you have a hit game, however, then it really makes sense to do it, because you look at games like Elder Sign or Ticket to Ride, it's really expanded the audience for those games, because people can learn the game and they can play them much faster. Like my wife, for example, plays Ticket to Ride. She learned it on the iPad and plays it all the time. That's the only physical game my wife will play with me is Ticket to Ride, because she learned it on the app and knows the rules, and she doesn't want to learn the rules. So it definitely helps expand the hobby, those apps. But it really should be a hit game first before you spend money on developing it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my question was, you're designing a game, you're spending months on it, you're playing it over and over and over, you're changing it, and how do you deal with burnout on a game?
Richard. Which one?
Work on 7 at the same time.
Sure.
That is my answer. Don't just do one. First of all, if you're a game designer, you have more than one idea.
Yep.
All right. So while you may have to keep parts straight as you're doing them, if you feel like you're getting burnt out on one, do a little work on the other one. Okay, and then go back to the other one. Sometimes it helps you you can confuse yourself in that process, but the truth of the matter is, a lot of time when I'm working on one of the different designs I have going, I get a breakthrough on one of the others, okay? So it can be helpful, but if you feel like you're getting burnt out on, well, first of all, if all you're doing is, have some balance in your life too. Spend some time with your family, your kids, out in the world. Don't just design games, all right? But while you are designing, if you're getting bogged down on the one, work on a different one.
Yeah, actually, sometimes it's even better to just put the game aside for a month or so and then come back to it. I think that works best for me. I am not the genius that this man is, that I can work at 7 games at once. 1 or 2 for me is about the max. But actually, just set it aside for a while. And I mean, sometimes a while means not even a month. Sometimes it means 6 months, maybe even a year. And you'll come back to it with a fresh approach, and all of a sudden, things that were kind of stumbling over, all of a sudden they fall into place, and you're going, oh wow, if I just did this or that, or whatever. Or, as Richard also said, hey, sometimes the game's on the shelf, and you'll come back and go, oh, that'll solve that problem, and you pull it back off the shelf.
Right, it's like it calls to you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like,
in the middle of the night.
Right.
2 o'clock.
I got it now.
Just a show of hands, how many of you pitched to a publisher before?
He's the pitchee.
Pitch to Zev.
That's right.
So, hard lesson learned that you'd be willing to share with us to avoid ourselves.
Hard sell?
Oh, what was the final?
What was the question?
What was the last
Avoid a
part?
hard sell?
What was something the publisher
So to make their pitches better so they don't embarrass
totally
themselves.
unprepared for?
So
So you would never do it again?
The first thing that I think is very important is don't pitch your game before it's ready and before you're ready. That's the biggest thing. When you first have an idea for a game and you do your alpha, a lot of times you're very excited, right? And you want to show people, and you show it to Zev, and he laughs at you.
He never.
No, he never laughs at you.
He just says
He's
no.
like probably the best person. He's actually an exception to the rule because he'll give you good feedback and improve it and look at it again, right? But I think there's a lot of publishers where that first impression is going to make it very hard on you to bring it back to them, right? So you want to make sure your game is ready before you start pitching it.
I got one. Pick the right time to pitch the game. Yeah, pick the right time. So, publishers often very busy, and you've got to make sure that you're not trying to show them something when they're not ready to listen or too busy to listen, right? So, actually, smaller cons like this are great. A lot of people go out to BGG Con, Dice Tower Con, not because that's just a great place to game, it is, but because it's a more casual setting, there's not as much sales going on. Publishers have time to look at games. So, just because you got the publisher's attention right then and there doesn't mean that's when you should show it to them. Zev, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of factors. So some rules, you could say, so you're ready to pitch, don't go on about how the idea came to you, don't give me the history, don't say my friends love it, my family loves it, everybody loves it, don't say this will kill Monopoly, don't say, this is $1 million, I guarantee it, and so on and so forth. Those are pitfalls you can easily avoid, and definitely don't do that. Just stick to what the game is about, quick, again, a lot of people do the publisher designer speed dating. There's usually a 5-minute time limit. Even that sometimes is a lot. 3 minutes is what I would probably say, but if you're showing components, 5 minutes is probably good. But again, it depends where you catch the publisher. In a place like this, it's a lot easier to talk about stuff, but stick to the subject of the game.
Instead of bedroom.
Stall in the bedroom. So yeah, just stick to what the game is about, and don't give the history of it. That's not important for the game.
No, there's a lot of different tiers in publishing or manufacturing companies too. I mean, if you're going to go and show a game to Hasbro or to Milton Bradley or, one of the bigger companies, first of all, you probably won't be able to show it to them because you'll need to talk to an agent first. Agents are good because they can go and talk about your game to these companies, and even though that you're giving up a part of your royalties, they usually can go ahead and get time because you're not going to get time. Then there's other tiers underneath them, and as Zev said, the best places to come for those conventions is like this one here, and then hit the suppliers or hit the manufacturers, and you'll be able to usually sit down and play the whole game with them. The Gathering of Friends is a perfect example of one that Alan Moon runs up there, that he has people from all over the world come to his game outing, and they basically look at product, even though there's a lot of game playing there. Some of the other places too is that just this lower tier, and there's nothing wrong with selling to a lower tier company. It's just that it's easier to get in and sell them a product. Usually you'll have to go ahead and usually introduce yourself with a letter. They don't want to see your product right away. You have to tell them a little bit about your product and then maybe try to set up an appointment. In that case, if you were, Toy Fair just happened, and Toy Fair was just last weekend, and the most you ever get with one of the bigger companies, and even some of the smaller companies there, is like, half an hour. And usually that's not even true because they're so far behind that you get in and get out in 10 minutes and you got 2 or 3 games to show them. That's about all the time you're going to have. So tomorrow night, I think we're talking about the 5-minute pitch or something, and that'll be a good time to come and take a look at what you can do in 5 minutes. And it's pretty exciting. And you got to catch their fancy too.
The one thing I would add also is, don't pitch it to everybody. Know who this game would be right for. Because if you don't, you're going to pitch it to a lot of people. It doesn't fit their portfolio. They're going to tell you no, and you're kind of wasting your time and their time. Wait till you have something that fits them, then pitch it to them. But yeah, know what kind of games they publish. Know how your game would fit into their portfolio. You don't have to tell them how it fits, but they'll realize it if you make the right presentation. But know who to present it to. You'll save yourself a lot of time and a lot of being told no.
I can relate a story that, and it's hard to believe that I walked into an interview with Mattel one time, and I had like 3 products I was going to show them. I had my half an hour, I was all prepared, and I opened the box and I said, this game is about dogs. No, we're not doing dogs, bye. And I said, well, this one here is about, no, we're not doing that. And the third one, I just got the box out, nah, we're not interested. I didn't even say anything about it. They were such crunch to get done with me so they could get on to other people that they were way behind. So, and don't take that as a disappointment or anything like that. It's just one of the things that they're under a crunch too. They're a time crunch.
That was actually sort of the original question. I like to hear these stories where something went really bad.
Oh, it went well. We're glad we could help you.
Well, I told you, people said this is a monopoly killer. This is my brother in the shower told me. I've heard it all.
Those were my greatest up to me. Don't say this. Don't say that.
So I know when pitching writing a book, that many publishers aren't interested in stuff you self-published. In fact, that's sometimes a kind of a hit against you as a writer. As a game designer, would self-publishing a game through crowdsourcing or whatever, would that be seen as a hit against you, or would they be more interested in just not even hearing about previous self-publishing experiences?
So every publisher is going to be different. For me, usually games that were kickstarted, I probably would not consider it, depending on how well they did, because you've already sold to a bunch of people in the marketplace. So how much is left for me to sell? I'm not sure.
Oh, no, the question is so I've already made one game. I kickstarted it, now I'm pitching a second game. Should I even mention like the success of the first crowdsourcing?
Oh, yeah, why not? I don't think that's bad at all. That's okay.
Yeah, okay, that's an easy
That's your
answer.
resume. That's fine, yeah. I can't imagine anybody being upset by anything like that.
Okay, cool.
No, sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, I did too. That's
Sorry for
So your reply to the other question was good to know too.
Okay, so so here's print and play stuff. I mean, you've seen many games that started as print and play have made it to published games. A recent one was Battlestar Galactica Express became Dark Moon, for example. I think there was a Sherlock
Mythos Tales.
Mythos Tales was one.
Which
There's
was it? Arkham Investigator.
was Arkham, yeah, so you've seen success that way, a lot of print and play stuff. So yes, the answer would be that can help. A publisher could catch the attention, could see the attention that it has in the marketplace and then say, oh, you know what, I can take this to a bigger level. Again, Kickstarter, that would be publisher dependent. And as I said, when I was doing stuff, we weren't really looking for that because, again, the sales in Kickstarter would, I think, eat up stuff in the marketplace. And it's very hard that once you do Kickstarter, how much more sales do you have? You might have some, but as a publisher, do I want to take that risk to publish, another 3,000, 5,000 copies, and then maybe there's 500 more people that want it, or 1,000? I don't know. It's a tough call to make, but I generally stayed away from that.
Right. I personally think print and play is a great way to get a little bit of attention, but also a little bit of scrutiny for your games, right? So, like we talked about earlier, getting the games in hands of people that you don't know, and just even, are my rules clear? Do they understand what I'm trying to do here? Right? So I think if you're interested in doing that, and I don't really think it hurts if that game were to be picked up, then people are going to want a nicer copy of that game. The people who like that game anyways are not going to be satisfied with just their print and play. And if they are, they're not going to buy your finished game anyways, right? So there's no harm in doing a little bit of print and play. You don't want to, I don't think that you should, only go to that well. But I mean, I think it's a good way to be a better game designer.
I'd also say that if you do have a self-published game and it does well and gets known and has sales, that you will be contacted by publishers, usually in other countries, that might want to do the Polish, sign the Polish rights or the Brazilian. So those kind of things can come up for you when you have a self-published title that does well. Like Zev said, maybe the bigger publishers may not be interested as much, but some of these smaller publishers that serve different markets around the world, maybe. So there should be opportunity there if your game does well.
The amount that your game sells on Kickstarter is not always does not always indicate how popular the game is. It just indicates that there is an audience for it, and many of those audiences are saturated once the Kickstarter funds. Other times, though, the Kickstarter is for a really good game, and it gains traction after the Kickstarter. And the publisher will take that into we'll look at it, and I'll say, well, how many did you sell? Because that's a big thing. And they'll say, oh, we sold only 1,000. Wow, this game's really good. 1,000's nothing. You sold 5,000 though? Well, then we're going to think about that because, most games don't sell more than 5,000 copies. And so, print and play, nothing. You won't lose a sale on print and play because everyone who bought the game print and play will be really annoyed that there's a better version. They'll go buy it. But a Kickstarter itself that you go and do on your own, the publisher has to determine.
Let me just do the flip side of the answer, 1,000 games. The other answer could be, really, only 1,000 people wanted it? Maybe the game is not worth publishing and, adding more to it. So
right, I was saying that in case you think, right, there's more to it than that.
But it could be, if that's all I'm looking at, I haven't tried the game, I might say, if it was really good, you would have had 5,000 sales. And then the other side is, well, you sold 5,000, I don't know how many more we're going to publish. Kickstarter is a tough thing. That's why it's a very tough call.
Here, I got a question for the audience. So my question to you folks is, first of all, you're here, so I assume that you have a game. The second question, though, is how many folks are planning to try to license it to a company versus how many folks are trying to do Kickstarter? So first of all, how many Kickstarters? Okay, then how many are going to try to license it to a company? Same people.
Does that help you?
I'm self.
So for a game designer that chooses to self-publish, other than cornering poor Tom in a corner at a small convention, how would you get your game reviewed?
Catch him in the urinal.
Hold it down.
No, I mean, no. If you're gonna promote your game, then you need to promote your game, and the best way to do that is to get it out there. Figure out who the best reviewers are, and have the biggest audiences. I guess best. Who cares how good they are? The biggest audiences. That's what matters, and different audiences. Now, I love my guys in the Dice Tower Network, but most of them all podcast to the same people. So you probably wouldn't send it to all of them. You'd say, okay, well, look at this group, this person over here. If you have a newspaper reporter who does board games, the more different people you get out there. At the same time, maybe if you do send it to a whole pile of people of the same audience, and those people hear 6 different people talk about the game, well, then maybe they'll buy it. I mean, that's how Bonneker sells his games. Well, no, I mean, there's some joking there, and I know he's probably watching this, but he really, he gives his games to tons of podcasters, right? And they're always talking about it. And people are like, well, yeah, I've heard of this game, because everyone is talking about it. If you look at, and just that constant talking about your game, not in an annoying way, not in a let's tweet every 5 seconds on Twitter, because that doesn't work. But Fantasy Flight is the master at promoting their games. They will come, they'll talk about it, they'll publish an article about the game, they'll announce it, then they'll show some strategy tips later on, they'll show you a picture a little bit at a time, and they get people frothing by the time it comes out. Then when it comes out, they send it to a few reviewers, and then those people go out and spread the word. Most people don't have everyone frothing at the mouth, but you can, the best example I know of is Quiet Hat Games.
Dead of Winter?
No, not Summoner Wars.
Mystic Summoner Wars.
When he first came out with Summoner Wars, it was a small card game. No one knew about him at all, other than, he ran HeroScapers.com. So he sent out a review copy to everyone he could think of, and it got all buzz, and that pretty much lifted his company off the ground. And it boggles my mind that people don't want to send out review copies to lots of people. Some of them aren't going to review your game. It's just going to happen. But the more people you're talking about your game, the better. You are spending $8 for publicity. I mean, buying ads on Board Game Geek costs a lot more than that. So,
question on trends in design. And I know there's always the cult of the new and the tendency of games to tag on to what was just done. But I really feel like the legacy hits of the last year are something a little bit different in terms of evolution, and I'm seeing a lot of people moving in that direction design-wise. Just wondering what your opinions are on the whole legacy trend.
You said a lot. I mean, I don't know more than 5.
No, I mean people who have games in development now as a result of those.
But I mean, again, I really don't know more than 5. It's really, really hard. If you talk to Rob W., he spends years on those games. I think it's a cool trend, and I'd love to see more of it, but we're not going to see that many, because it's that. I mean, we're not going to see that many good ones, because it's really that hard. Are you doing one?
Who?
You?
No. Well, here. No. First of all, yes, they are hard, okay? But secondly, I'm not a real fan of the legacy thing personally. I mean, I respect it. I see where it comes from. But I like the idea that if I want to start over and play this game again, I can, okay? So I kind of like the idea of the legacy piece being in there, so it carries over from game to game. But I want to be able to pick those cards up and play it again without, I destroyed the box, so now I don't, I put a
You don't
sticker
destroy
in
the
here.
box.
I did this, I did that. Well, you do.
That's the nth degree, baby.
So,
When you're
you know,
done.
so I don't know, I have seen that there's been some good legacies. I think there will be some more, but it is hard to make them. I agree with Tom, it's right there. To make a really good legacy game, there's a lot involved in that process.
It's kind of like Magic the Gathering. It's like the next expansion for Magic the Gathering. You know, one builds on the other. It's legacy and with cards.
I've started destroying all the cards in every game.
To get used to the idea.
And I do want to go back to Richard's, when he had all of you hold your hands up for you've got a game and then you're also publishing a game. Anybody that knows me, with the exception of Robert, he may be the exception to the rule down there, I say that you can be a designer or a publisher, but it's very difficult to be both for very long.
Yeah.
So,
Amen.
you know, you kind of have to pick which one you're going to be, because once you become a publisher, there is a heck of a lot of things that take all your time.
Right.
And you're just not going to be able to design anymore.
No.
So for me, I've decided I'm never going that route. I'm going to design games. It's what I like to do. It's what I want to do. And let the publishers deal with all the pieces that I don't want to have to fool with.
Hi. Building upon the question, or when we were discussing the idea of sending out your game to as many reviewers as possible, at what point is that appropriate, or more precisely, at what level should the game be? Meaning, is it still a prototype quality? Should it be a manufacturer level quality? When you're sending out those review copies, what should we be sending out?
That all depends on the reviewer themselves. Like at the Dice Tower, we're not looking at your game unless it's completely finished. There's rare exceptions like here. But for the most part, we're not looking at the game until it's completely done and available for people to buy. But other people will gladly review if you send it to them on a napkin. I mean, there's people out there like, yes, you send me a game, they'll review it. The biggest reviewers want to see the finished final game for the most part, but each reviewer is going to be very different.
Wouldn't that then mean you've now had to publish it in order to send them a review
Yes.
copy?
Yeah.
So then how do you use
Go to
sending it to
Kickstarter.
the reviewers as a way of gaining traction?
Well, I mean, you want to sell it after you publish it.
You can make a pre-production copy.
No, yeah, but you're saying for our policies?
Well, because you guys were discussing the idea of whether you self-publish, whether you go to an existing company to publish, the pros and cons. And what I'm trying to understand is if somebody wants to create traction by sending it to reviewers, it sounds to me like what I hear you saying is that you either have had to self-publish it and you have your 2,000 copies, or you've gone to a game company. So then wouldn't they be the ones sending it out to the reviewers?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's the game publisher's thing that they should do. For the designer to get traction on it, yeah, you should let the reviewer do that. Although I have a lot of designers be doing the reviewers, I mean, the publisher's job for them. They'll be like, they didn't send you that game, I'll send it to
No,
you.
but I think she's also saying, if you've chosen the self-publishing route, yes, then you have to, then he's saying, send it out to reviewers. That's how you're going to hopefully gain traction. If a publisher has done it, most likely they're doing that.
Right, and I guess back to what, I don't know who's over there,
His name's Robert.
Robert, whether it's a prototype, or actually I forgot the word that was said, pre-production copy versus the.
Steve said that.
Right, so there's a couple different things here. Like, first of all, if you're publishing it through different channels, if you're on Z-Man Games or WizKids, then they're gonna do it for you because it's published. If you're publishing it yourself and printing 2,000 copies, then you will send them out to the reviewers that you like. If you are asking, who do I get to review my game before it's been made, because I'm gonna kickstart it, that's a whole different thing, right? And in that case, my recommendation is make sure your game is done. And when I say done, it's completely done and play tested and blind tested. It's ready to go to press. Hopefully you've even done the art and graphic design. Now you don't have to have all that done, but it's gonna be a lot easier if you do. Because at that point, now you can have some really nice prototypes made. A lot of times you can have them made to where you really can't tell the difference that much. If you use Game Crafter or Print and Play Productions to do a really nice box and everything, then you want to send that out to those reviewers who will review a game before it's published. So you're not going to send it to Tom Vasel because the Dice Tower doesn't do that, right? Do you want to send it out to those who will review games before they're published?
Just
Or
Got
even,
Played.
like Just Got Played, like Patrick Siebert sitting right here in the front row. There's
Brian.
And Brian. Anybody else?
Actually, I'd like to get that one.
Just Got Played. Yeah, so, and if you're on Board Game Geek, if you're on the Dice Tower, you're gonna see them, you know, Dan King will do them, Undead Viking, we all know these names of people who do reviews, so find the top reviewers, and if you don't know, ask them if they review unpublished games, and get them copies. Now, you run into a money thing here too, because making a nice prototype is expensive, right? It's not like if you print 2,000, 5,000 copies where it's costing $8. If you're making a prototype, you're talking 30, 50, even more, right? So if you're doing 100, if you want to send out 10 copies and it costs you $50, that's $500, right? And so you do want to make sure that they'll review it for you. You want to get some kind of commitment because you don't want to waste your money, but there's no guarantee that they'll review it if you send it to them. So reach out to them first, connect. Say, do you review prototype copies? Would you be interested in this? You know, what's your policy? You know, some of them will do previews where you pay a fee to have them not review it, but preview it to get people, at least to learn the rules, to get people interested in it. So that's, I think, hopefully I answered your question on what you were looking for.
Let me add one thing. Again, I'm assuming then you'll, what Rob said, great. I'm assuming you have a plan. So when you approach these people, you say, hey, I'm planning to Kickstarter this in 2 months or something. So then they can also mention it in their review that it's being Kickstarted or it's being published at a certain time. Not just something that, here's something that I did. Maybe it's going to come out 6 months, a year from now. That's not going to help you and you've just wasted a lot of money.
Yeah.
So also do it with a plan as to when it's going to come out and let them know about it.
If you're doing the previews for Kickstarter, some things to take note. Again, you really want to, because it's expensive, know the size of the audience of that previewer. A lot of them are charging money for this now because it is essentially an advertisement rather than a review. Because they could do a review of it, but there's so many published games out there now that getting the preview, and everyone is asking. We, on the Dice Tower, I had them put it in bold, and I had them make it bigger, that we don't do preview reviews, and I still probably get someone asking me every other day. And that's before we put that up. Before we put that up, 3 or 4 people are asking me every day, well, how do I decide who to do? So a lot of these people will charge money for that, but unless you are paying them, they don't work for you. So you sending them a $40 prototype may seem, that's a lot of money to you, but what if they got 6 of them that day? How do they decide which one to do first? And please send them good rules. You know, make it as easy as possible for them, because I stopped doing it because I was ready to kill someone. It was just it was a stressful thing. And it's much harder. You know, the rule books for many published games are awful. The rule books for prototypes are bad, and the people would get on my case. I need it done during, between June 1st, 6:30 and 6:50 p.m. at night, and it was really just stressful in that regard. And so it's a whole different ballpark when you're doing previews. There's whole Kickstarter groups, Facebook groups out there about it. They have lists of guys, and you will have 100 tell you that they'll do your game. But some of them have, also realize some of them have like 4 readers. So keep that in mind. Not you who are watching this, I know you have a big audience.
Since we're talking with designers and that, rules, yes, very, very, very important. Rules, very important.
Talk Monday about that preview stuff.
So I was one of the ones that raised the hand for going with a publisher. What is the business process for that? Like, how do you get to do the demo, they say, we're interested, now what's the next step?
Okay, so again, with every publisher, it's different, but let's say you sent the prototype to the publisher says, I like it, now you're talking contract. So you hammer out a contract, usually it's a royalty against sales, maybe there's a small advance, maybe not, depends on how well known you are in the industry. And then it's also up to the publisher. Sometimes you're involved in the process, sometimes you're not. Many times you'll be asked to maybe revise some stuff or help out with some stuff. You might get an opinion on art? Most likely not. Yeah, I mean, every publisher is different. Again, it depends. That if that's important to you, you will have to stress that and go, hey, I want to be involved, or I want some say or whatnot. Again, you probably will not get it, especially with the bigger publishers, the smaller ones. You may work side by side with them. Don't know, but I could see that happening. When I was doing it, I liked designer input, and I did ask for designer opinions, especially on art or whatnot. But again, I had the final say because I would do it the way I felt I could market it better. But yeah, that's it. And you'll be asked maybe to go on Board Game Geek and do a designer diary, or to help out answer questions about the game. Maybe go to a convention or conventions and demonstrate the game. It's all what you're going to what you will feel comfortable doing. How much you want to be involved, and yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to start with Robert and go down the line. Everybody say what you got going on in the near future.
Okay. I've got a few things going on right now. I've got one with Steve and Avery here called Doppelganger. If you want to play it, I've got it here. Come see us. We'd be happy to play it with you. It's a trader game. Also have a game called OP Arena. It's called Overpowered Arena, which is all kinds of crazy characters. There's 100 different characters that are just all fighting each other. It's absolutely nuts. It's pure Ameritrash. If you're interested in playing something like that, come see me. I've got that here as well. I've got a trick-taking game called Moons that uses the moons of the solar system that I'm shopping to publishers right now that I probably won't do myself. I've got a reprint of Battle for Souls coming up as well. And I've got a party game that I've signed with Hank Green's new company called DFTBA Games that's going to be coming out soon, called Rolf. And I'd be happy to talk about that. I don't have a copy of that, but that is going to be published here in the next year or so. Thank you.
Hi, I've got a couple games coming out with Cool Mini or Not. There's a party game. It's a kind of a rapid dice rolling game with some silliness thrown in, where it's called Ta-da, like ta-da. That's right. That's right. It's all about Z right there. That's Z's idea. I said it here.
Oh, don't throw me under the bus like that.
So, one of my first games was a dart gun game. The Cool Mini or Not picked that game up too. They're making that game, and then
Lawsuit.
Yeah, not for me. I looked at the contract very carefully with my one good eye. And then I have a unnamed dice game that I'm working with their lead designer at, but right now they don't have a name for it. It's a horror-based dice adventure game. And then in 2017, I have a dice adventure game with, oh, geez. I'm so bad.
Summit.
Well, I've got an adventure game with A Summit and a dice game with Travis and Nick. What are their codes?
You can't remember.
I can't remember their
Oh, Action
company.
Phase.
Action Phase Games. Don't watch this.
He did have a contract with Action.
I'm working on absolutely nothing. But with the Dice Tower Essentials, Onitama should be out in stores in a couple weeks. So finally, number 2 at Dice Tower Essentials. And right behind that, in a month, we're going to have Speechless. That's a party game from Mike Elliott, designer of Thunderstone. Basically, it's a game where it's like charades. But if, like Steve is pretending to be a flamingo and he's actually a peacock, and well, he looks like a peacock, and me and Zev both pick peacock, we'll get points for matching each other in our wrong answers. So I like getting points for being wrong. And then Royals is coming out behind that too.
Get lots of points for that.
Yes, I would. I win. Royals, which is a reprint of Peter Hall's game that came out in Europe. Really happy with that
Nice
one.
game.
And several others. The line in Dice Tower Essentials has a good backlog at this point. We're still looking for new ones, but they have to be really, really good. So.
Zev Shlasinger. I am now part of the WizKids team. So, thank you. And my job is to expand their board game division. So I am looking at stuff, and I'm pretty much doing what I've always been doing, trying to find games, develop games, and going to shows to do all that.
Richard Launius, I've got, a bunch of them, somewhere in the works in different places. Defenders of the Last Stand will be coming out sometime this year. Legends of the American Frontier just came out from Game Salute. It's beautiful. If you haven't seen it, it's one I really like. I've got Saving Time, which will come out later in the year. Gods of Adventure, which hopefully will come out later in this year or early next year. I've got the Crew Chief expansion for Thunder Alley that will be on, I guess, Kickstarter not too far into the future and come out later this year. And I've got 2 different Cthulhu board games for different publishers and 3 or 4 other fantasy games kind of in the works in different stages. So, and Saving Time, I don't know if I mentioned that one, the time travel game. So I've got quite a few in the process here. Would you like to finish any of them for me?
Yes. I've got quite a few expansions for games that are already on the market. So if you're familiar with Commands and Colors, it's a historical game system that I've worked on. We've done a lot of new things for that, and they'll be coming out through the next year or so. We have a Thunder and Lightning game that's coming out from Zev's own company, and it's a card game. That should be, hopefully it should be pretty popular. Other things in the works all the time, but we keep busy.
Yeah, so thank you guys.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.